Um, I just came up here in crutches. I'm gonna need a little bit more energy than that. I'm sorry. Um, Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so this guy's gonna come talk about porn. Who wants some good old-fashioned shame and guilt? Or maybe somebody to tell you if you just prayed harder and loved Jesus better, you wouldn't have these problems in your life. Anybody want some of that? Good, because I don't roll that way either. I am gonna be transparent. I'm gonna be vulnerable. But I don't like to do the shame and guilt. I just like to be me. I plan on today I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you what I learned from my story. And I want to tell you what you can do about that. So, the elephant in the room, uh, I hurt my hip earlier this week, and I've been on bed rest the last 3 days on Percocet. I'm still on Percocet, I'm just not in the bed. Um, and my doctor she said, well, make sure while you're on this med that you don't do anything that requires a lot of mental focus and a lot of concentration. I said, you mean like standing in front of a room full of strangers telling my business, telling my story? Um, so once upon a time there was a little boy. This little boy used to hide in the closet from his father. His father was abusive. He was wounded, he was hurt, he was violated, he was rejected. And one of those days in that closet, he decided that he was going to now be in charge of making sure he didn't feel any more pain in his life. He turned 9 years old, and his neighborhood friends introduced him to some of the best medication he could ever find. That medication was pornography. A handful of years later, he actually lost his virginity to rape. Yeah, ladies, that happens to guys too. I'm going to blame that on the medication because I've never actually said that in public before. Between the ages of 9 and 39, he was completely addicted to pornography, and it ruined every part of his life. He lost a career. He lost every relationship he ever had, including 2 marriages. He lost his hope, his self-esteem, everything. At my rock bottom, I was sleeping in the back of my car and beginning to plan and execute my suicide. Sometimes, though, when you get to the end of your rope, you find out it's the beginning of your fuse. I believe that God showed me the plan on how to get free from pornography. And I've been using that method in my life for the past several years. As a matter of fact, I've been teaching that plan for the past 4.5 years to guys from the age of 11 all the way up to about 73 or 74 years old. And that story, if nothing else, has revealed to me that when pornography enters your life and enters your home, enters your marriage, enters your relationship, it becomes a person. And since most consumers of pornography like me are guys, I call it a she. And matter of fact, I call her specifically a mistress. See if I get there we go. I call her a mistress. This mistress is very real. Matter of fact, she generates more revenue than all professional sports combined. She generates more web traffic than all forms of social media combined. 6 out of 10 divorces involve her. 6 out of 10 divorces in America means that if the courts were open 7 days a week, that would be 1,500 divorces a day involving this mistress. That 1,500 a day equates to the same number, actually it equates to more than all forms of cancer death combined every single year. Do you know any teens? Well, this spring, 9 out of 10 boys and 6 out of 10 girls graduating high school will be regularly consuming free and unlimited broadband internet pornography. So, what makes her one of the most powerful and influential kind of figures in our culture? In my book, I actually sum it up in the context of 6 V's. And these V's are, first of all, visualization. She hooks him with his eyes, and the eyes are the windows to the soul. Then there's variety. She gives him an unlimited amount of variety to look at. Then there's vitality. She makes him feel like the captain of the football team, like there's nothing he can't do. And then she gives him a sense of victory. He never, ever loses because she never says no. As a matter of fact, all she says is yes. And no matter what deep, dark secret he whispers in her ear, she comes back for more over and over again. She'll never leave him. She'll never reject him. She'll never say ill. What do you think that does to his baseline for consent? Now, who in here has stress? Anyone? Does anyone have any kind of stress in your life? Anyone? If your hand is down, you are straight up lying in church. She gives him a sense of vacation, an escape from everything that is stressful in his life. And then last but certainly not least, all of her affirmation turns into validation. Her affirmation turns into a sense of identity. And that identity actually becomes a slavery identity. Slavery at the end of the bed begins at slavery at the end of a mouse. Now, what you see here is actually a synthetic drug, one of the most powerful drugs in our culture today, because visualization and variety gives him a double dose of dopamine. Dopamine spike is the same thing that happens when you take drugs like cocaine and crack. It's also the same thing that happens when you take drugs like Adderall or Ritalin. Through vitality, he gets a boost of testosterone. And testosterone is like the jet fuel for masculinity. Through the victory, he gets a boost of that locker room endorphins, that endorphin release. Now, endorphins are the body's natural opiate. Artificial opiates are drugs like heroin, morphine, codeine, OxyContin, Percocet that I've been on the past 3 days. But he gets the natural form of that in terms of endorphins as much as possible, as much as he wants. Stress has a chemical name, and that chemical name is cortisol. The perfect chemical antidote to cortisol is oxytocin. So her vacation gives him unlimited amounts of oxytocin. Now, if the 5 of those represent the synthetic drug, validation is like the label on the bottle. It says who owns the drug and who the drug owns. Now, when this cycle begins to spin around, just like any other drug, the more you take, the more you need to get the same high. My doctor actually warned me about taking Percocet. She said, try to take some of the pain because you'll get so used to taking the Percocet that your pain tolerance will reduce and you'll think you need more than you actually do. It's the same thing that happens here. And when this begins to spin off the charts, it creates demand. It creates demand for things like infidelity. It always comes off the screen into his life. It creates demand for things like sexual harassment, like sexual assault. It creates things like demand for prostitution and human trafficking, even if you're the owner of an NFL football team. Now, when this begins to take over his life, he loses absolute control, and he loses control to this IP mistress. And everything he knows becomes wrapped up in her. And where do we get this from? Where does he get this IP mistress? Now, when you see that, you think World Wide Web. When I look at that, I see 6 V's. It was there the whole time. I just helped you see it different. Now, is anyone feeling kind of a little bit helpless? I got a letter, an email from a wife that read my book not too long ago, and after she read it, I asked her for feedback. She said, I feel hopeless. She said, I can't compete with that. And I said, you shouldn't have to. But if you feel a little bit hopeless, my good friend John DeYoung told me just last week, he said, man, awareness without action is apathy. So does anyone want something to do? Yes, no? I mean, I can leave if I can, no? I'm glad you said that. Because me and 3 of my buddies, actually a week from today, we're producing a seminar called the Uplift Him Masculine Leadership Initiative, where we're covering topics like speaking with confidence, breaking through fear and obstacle as well as suicide awareness, financial literacy, and I'm talking about healthy sexuality. We are empowering moms to connect with sons towards healthy masculinity. I have flyers downstairs on my table if you want to grab one, and you can actually register here at my table. But there's an opportunity to take action, to do something. Sometimes the best thing you can do is something. Now, if I could, I'd like to close by speaking to 3 different groups of people in the room. First, I want to speak to the young ladies, the girls in the room. And I want to tell you something you need to hear. You are enough. Whoever you are. You are enough. I have 3 daughters. I'm a feminist. I also have a son. I'm a masculinist. I don't know if that's a word. But whoever you are, young lady, you are enough. Your value is not determined by what some boy says. You are worth the life of the creator of the universe. And don't you ever forget that. To the lady, to the woman in the room, I'd like to tell you, it's not your fault. It wasn't your fault. That abuse, that infidelity, that rejection, that abandonment, it wasn't your fault. I've had somebody walk out of my life with no answers. I understand that. I can't say I understand your journey and your pain, but I understand that. And let me tell you, it wasn't your fault. You are beautiful exactly the way you are. That is his problem to solve and not yours. And to whoever that is, I don't know if I'm, whoever that is, you're a beautiful rose, and even as your petals fall off, it just reveals more of your inner beauty. Whoever you are, it wasn't your fault. Now, can I speak to the guys? Are there any guys in here, young or old? Are there any guys in the room, young or old? Is there any male willing to stand with me here today? Are there any guys in this room willing to stand today? Like literally stand with me, a guy on crutches. Hold that. I needed some help with that today. I am Kirk M. Samuels, the intimacy incubator. I stand here looking out at a bunch of men that decided to show up on a snowy day when you could have had something else to do. And to you, my brother, I tell you that, man, if you stand with me, I'll die for you. That it's time for us, the good men, to stand up and be recognized and be known. Because there are a lot of good men out here, and you know you are. And it's time for us to say, no, we're not standing for this anymore. It's time for us to say, this is our time. This is our time to say that female objectification is not going to get past me. It's our time to say this is our battle to fight. And we'll fight this thing together. And together, we'll look at tyranny, we'll look at slavery, we'll look at oppression, and we'll say together, they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.